It all started on a freezing, snowy night. Out of nowhere, my phone started ringing. When I answered, my mother-in-law's angry voice shouted at me, "It's your fault my daughter is in this condition. Her face is ruined and it's horrible. You need to take responsibility. Why did you abandon her? You're despicable." My name is Amy, and I'm 33 years old. I live with my husband, Jack, who has his parents and an older sister. That phone call from my mother-in-law changed my life completely. "Give me back my lively daughter. Why did you do something so terrible? I swear I'll make you pay for this. She'll never forgive you," she yelled, not making much sense, like she was in shock. I tried to calm her down, saying, "Mother-in-law, please calm down. I don't understand what's going on." But she wouldn't listen. She just kept yelling, blaming me, and crying. No matter what I said, she kept accusing me, not really hearing me at all. Finally, my father-in-law took the phone from her. He spoke more calmly. "Amy, I hope you understand what you've done. Do you know what condition our daughter is in? Luckily, her life isn't in danger, but her injuries are severe. How could you let her suffer like this?" Since he was a bit calmer, I told him honestly, "Father, I'm sorry, but I really don't understand what you were talking about. What exactly happened?" He looked confused that I didn't know anything, but he eventually told me the story. What I heard was hard to believe. My sister-in-law, a single mother, lived about a 20-minute walk from my home with her young child. She'd been dating the young man who often came over, but he had a bad temper and had hit her in the past. Last night, his anger was worse than ever, and he became more violent. Feeling like their lives were in danger, my sister-in-law grabbed her child and ran out of the house into the snowy night. Desperate to find safety, with nowhere else to go, she thought of her brother, Jack, who lived nearby, and ran to our house, hoping we could help her. She rang the doorbell, and Jack, who was home, answered. She stood there, holding her child, bruised and out of breath. Anyone could see something was terribly wrong, but instead of helping, Jack seemed annoyed and told her, "If I let people in without permission, Amy would get mad. Sorry, but can't you go home? She's scary when she's angry. Please leave." He turned her away. In shock, my sister-in-law begged him to at least lend her money for a hotel, since she had run out without her phone or wallet. But Jack said something even more unbelievable. "There's no way I have that kind of money. There's money in the house, but Amy wouldn't let me use it without permission. If I did, she'd divorce me. Sorry, but try somewhere else. It's cold, so I'm going in." Then he closed the door, leaving her outside. Holding her child and afraid they might freeze, my sister-in-law walked back through the snow and reluctantly returned home. There, her boyfriend's rage was even worse. He beat her until her face was unrecognizable and kicked the child until they lost consciousness. She tried to hold him back, but it only made him angrier. Her screams, along with the sounds of breaking dishes and furniture, echoed through the neighborhood. A passerby heard the noise and called the police. When the police arrived, they found my sister-in-law and her child badly beaten and unconscious. They were rushed to the hospital by ambulance. Though they're awake now, my sister-in-law and her child are seriously injured and will need a month to fully recover in the hospital. I got home late last night because I was working at a cafe I own, and my sister-in-law hadn't come after I got there. If I'd been home when she arrived, I would never have turned her away. Seeing her in that condition, I would have let her in right away and called the police. I couldn't understand why my in-laws thought I was the one who turned her away. It was shocking to hear about what happened to her, and even worse that my in-laws were blaming me. I was so confused. Despite my father-in-law's harsh accusations, I knew I had to explain the truth. Desperately, I told him I wasn't home when she came. I was working late at the cafe and didn't get home until after midnight. If I had seen her, I would have let her in. Please, just give me a chance to find out what really happened. While he still seemed upset, he finally calmed down and hung up the phone. Later, when Zach came home from work, I confronted him about turning his sister away. His response left me stunned. He said, "I could tell something was wrong when she showed up, but I was just about to have a beer, and it was cold outside. Plus, I didn't think there was anything I could do. I was furious. Didn't you feel anything seeing her like that? Why couldn't you just let her in? I asked, telling him about her condition now. He brushed it off, saying, "You always complain when my family drops in without notice. I thought I was being considerate by not letting her in since I figured it would bother you. What did I do wrong?" Shocked, I asked, "Then why didn't you lend her some money? You could have at least done that." He answered, "I was surprised when she asked for money. I barely had $10 on me because I lost money gambling recently, and I didn't want to use our household money since I knew you'd get mad." I was speechless. I'd always thought he was a bit selfish, but I never realized just how much he always put himself first. He didn't seem to care about his sister's pain at all. He even said, "From my point of view, she'd have ended up in trouble anyway, no matter where she went. But at least she's safe in the hospital now, and we're fine too. That's thanks to me, right?" His cold attitude made me feel like I was losing my mind, so I decided to stop talking to him. Holding back my anger, I called my father-in-law and told him how Zach had treated his sister the night before. Hearing this, Zach's father was furious. Zach's father shouted, "There's no way my son would do something like that to his own sister. Stop making up stories, Amy. Are you just trying to make Zach look terrible to cover for yourself? If you're saying these things, show me some proof." He refused to believe me and blamed me for everything. I struggled to figure out how to clear my name, knowing that if I didn't, I would be labeled as the villain while Zach, who truly turned his sister away, would go unpunished. I remembered that my sister-in-law came by around 9 p.m. that night. After thinking it through, I realized I had proof my shop has a security camera, and the footage showed me working there until 11 p.m. I also had a taxi receipt as showed when I got home. With this evidence in hand, I went to my in-laws. I said, "I was at my shop when she came by. Do you believe me now?" They didn't want to believe it, but they had no choice. Zach's father, his hands shaking, muttered, "So, Amy really wasn't home." Zach's parents then called him to confront him. As soon as he arrived, they demanded, "Why did you turn your sister away?" Zach tried to shift the blame onto me, saying he thought I wouldn't like having her over. His father replied, "We know Amy wasn't home then, but your sister says she saw a woman in the house. Who was she?" Zach. I was stunned. If there was another woman in our house that night, there was only one explanation. "Zach, who is this woman?" I asked, my voice shaking. Zach's face turned pale, and after squirming under our questions, he finally confessed. He admitted that since I was working late, he took the chance to bring his mistress home. Zach had been having an affair with a co-worker from his company for a year. He had secretly brought her to our home when I wasn't there. Learning about this betrayal made me furious, especially since he even tried to blame his treatment of his sister on me. I didn't hesitate to divorce him. I had Zach sign the divorce papers. Then I went to a law firm, hired a lawyer, and filed for damages from both him and his mistress. I also called Zach's boss, who had introduced us, and through my tears, told him everything. Zach's boss, a man who values integrity, was very angry when he heard about Zach's affair. He informed upper management, and, on his advice, Zach was transferred to a branch office in the countryside. His mistress was reassigned to a different department, where she had to do dull paperwork all day. My sister-in-law, however, sought her own revenge. She was still recovering from her injuries and resented Zach for turning her away that night. She worked for one of Zach's company's clients, so she used her connections to spread the story of how Zach had abandoned her to hide his affair. Zach's co-workers were shocked when they heard the full story, realizing that his divorce wasn't just because of the affair, but also because he had left his own sister out in the cold. He quickly became disliked by everyone at work, which affected his performance, leading to a demotion. Unable to handle the rejection, he eventually quit his job. To pay me the alimony, Zach drained his savings and now has to work part-time, live-in jobs, sending me nearly all his earnings. I heard that he can barely afford winter clothes and shivers through the cold in thin shirts. As for his mistress, she stubbornly kept her job despite being judged by her co-workers. After consulting my lawyer, I decided to ask her parents to cover the damages. Shocked by the situation, her parents forced her to pay me the full amount. She left me many angry voicemails, blaming me for ruining her life and putting her in debt. Fed up, I sent those messages to her parents, who apologized and promised I'd never hear from her again. And since then, the harassing calls stopped.